And what's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Kenny here, episode 31 with Live with Kenny. You're alive with Kenny. And we're going to talk about the intense debate about the U.S. education system. Well, now, a lot of stuff been going on with the education system that we can gripe about. As always, I want to warm up a little bit with my own personal monologue about the education system, my personal problems with it, my personal commentary on it. And you guys let me know what you're thinking in the comment section below, or if you're in the chat, you let me know your thoughts. So, first gripe with the education system is that I think this needs to be a clarification on what's the purpose of education. Is it to transmit values or to transmit knowledge, right? And I know you can kind of do both, right? But I think there needs to be a prioritization that goes on here, right? Because it seems like in our public school system today, it seems like the left or people who are more liberal, they seem to have this approach that schools should prioritize teaching values, right? And I'm sure some people might have heard the story, maybe you have not. But apparently for debate has been woke, right? So now people who you're doing a sport where the whole point of the sport, the whole point of the debate is to win the argument. But now you have people trying to take in consideration feelings in a debate. Yes, you heard that right. And this is what they're teaching our high school kids today. I wish I had the video in front of me, but it was something I ran across. And that's kind of an example of some of the gripes I have with the current education system. And this is why I believe that spending money on this education system is like throwing money at a fire. Like, it's not really doing anything productive, but just burning through cash. I'm going to give some of my thoughts as I read some of the data. This is a Brookings Institute. Research is not nothing. The role of money in improving education. Now, I believe money can improve education, but it's how these funds are deployed is whether it will make or break the attempt. And I hear a lot of people, a lot of teachers trying to make this argument about how we need to pay teachers more, or we need to fund schooling, we need to put more money into schools. And that is very debatable yet, but people still want to sit around and saying, oh, money's everything. Yes, we need to fund these public schools because that's the reason for the disproportional educational outcomes. But I heavily disagree with that. And you're going to hear that in the debate with the teachers versus the parents and the students. But I won't get into the article because I don't want to spend too much time on this. The roots of the long contentious debate of whether we should spend more money for K-12 education can be found in two sentences from the famous 1966 report led by James Coleman. It is known that social economic factors bear a strong relation to economic achievement. I agree with this, right? But not for the reasons they think it is. Like there's a lot of stats that proves that if you are born in a wealthy family, there's statistical analysis that show that you have better academic outcomes, better college outcomes. But I don't think it's due to money necessarily, because at the end of the day, if you're a person that can, let's say me, for instance, I could use myself as an example because my kids will benefit from a social economic factor. I do a white collar job. I work from home, right? I have skills, I have knowledge, I have abilities that I could make my kids aware of a lot earlier than someone who comes from a more poor background, right? I'm in a position where I invest my money. So my kid's more likely to be financially illiterate, right? And that's a big advantage to have. I have a good credit score. So I will teach my kids the tricks and trade that it took me years to learn. He can learn it in a couple of months being exposed to me or modeling my behavior. He will learn it unconsciously. And I think a lot of these people don't want to look at these kind of behavioral traits that are passed down to parent to child. This is why educated people tend to have well-educated kids, because a lot of this stuff kids imitate what they see from their parents. And modeling those behaviors gives them the result that they're looking for, right? If you come from it shows with diet too. If your parents are obese, there's a high statistical likelihood that you will be obese. Why? Because of the eating habits, the behaviors and the traits and the habits that your parents instill in the household. You'll imitate, follow that, and you eat the same habits you eat the same food they have, because obviously the parents control the settings of the environment. And I think that's a very big determiner of academic outcomes, right? If you don't have a culture, you don't have a tradition in your family that values learning, that values academic success, that values intelligence or knowledge or the seeking of knowledge. This is why people who grew up with books around them tend to have a higher academic success than people who grew up without any books or their parents weren't active readers, right? These behavior, I think these behaviors determine a lot more of these outcomes than purely, oh, they have money. But I digress. When these factors are statistically controlled, however, it appears that the difference between schools account for only a small fraction of differences in pupil achievement. The conclusion is sometimes stated as money doesn't matter. Right now, that's an absolute statement, and obviously, that's not true. It could play a factor. Money can play a factor indeed. But why is it that money doesn't matter is stated as, hey, this is a false conclusion, but we still have these teachers, we still have these people who are very pro-government schools still asking for money. When if you look at our results, and I'm going to show you an example later into the video, but when you look at the proof, we invest so much money, but look at the outcomes we get for it. Showing like that argument is it should be dead in the water. Like, hey, money might be a factor, but there's no correlation with more money equals better academic success for the students and the teachers and all this stuff. It's just a way, I see it as a way of teachers using it as a pretext, an excuse to demand higher pay. That's all I see it as. But I digress. A paraphrase that also suggests that there is no basis for equalizing spending in schools, which, because they often are funded by local property tax, end up spending lower amounts in lower income communities. And the federal education spending focus directly on giving states and districts money to close achievement gaps, which assumes money matters, right? Exactly, which is what a lot of these teachers demand. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole article, but I just want to get to the point about causation. And as a causation estimate of spending effects will be an experiment maybe structured like this. A state identifies, say, 50 school districts and divide them randomly into two groups of 25. It gives one of these groups more funding and does not change any aspects of the funding. If money causes education outcomes to improve, test scores of the students in the two groups will diverge over time. The difference in scores is what we want to know, the causal effects of adding funds, right? And I think that if you do any type of research, you'll notice that it's not as black and white as people try to paint it out to be, right? This kind of experiment is unlikely to be done for the various legal and political reasons, right? Because at the end of the day, there's ideals mixed up into it. The teachers don't want to see this because if it shows that there's not much difference, then all they've been hoopla about is necessarily like dead in the water, right? But some research methods can measure causal effects without group experiments. Two recent studies found that these methods provide evidence that money matters, but they also provide evidence that it'll take a massive amount to close the gap. So pretty much the study is just trying to say that money isn't the only reason people are poor, lower income school districts are not doing as well as higher income school districts. And some of the reasons I laid out earlier before, some of the habits, some of the time invested in education, the intentionality of the parents to educate their kids, those have a lot bigger impact on the academic outcomes of these kids, right? So the study shows that short-term money does not matter. So when these teachers come, we need to invest billions of dollars in next year's budget. Now, the article is trying to make a claim about long-term effects, and I think that throughout the history since the 1971s, there's been a lot of studies, I think, that challenges this assertion that over time education will improve. Maybe in the higher scheme of things, but I doubt it. So one of the schools I'm going to use is Baltimore City Public School. Now, if you've been following political news, you'll know Baltimore has some of the worst school districts in our nation, right? And there's a lot more. Trust me. I'm gonna get you guys this information under 15 minutes. Baltimore has approved $1.7 billion budget for the Baltimore City Public Schools for 2023 to 2024. Here's the area of investments, and this is some of the things of how money doesn't really matter, right? Because if I decide, hey, we're gonna spend $1.7 billion in public school education, but I spent all the money hiring art teachers, do you think the the education, it'll close any academic achievement gap? No, because you're not deploying the money effectively. And that's why I say it's not a funding problem. It's an approach problem. It's a process problem. I think that's the biggest reason why these schools fail, right? And I'm a like critique some of the funding, right? So $25 million in high dosage tutoring plus an additional $1.5 million in tutoring specifically for math, which is a big weak area for Baltimore specifically, right? They don't do, like, I mean, most public schools too, but they investing $13 million in literacy coaches at school, which this is fine. Like, I think, excuse me, I think this is fine, right? But I think it could be more efficient. For instance, why would you want AP courses when your school's already struggling? See, this is where I'm saying is they're veering off the problem. Now, it's the least expensive thing on this list. Like, it's only 1.6 million, right? This is where I'm gonna start having a problem, because I just think the traditional model is not effective. The current approach, and like I said, traditional schools, their main concept of intelligence, how they teach your kids, is simply memorization. There's a heavy focus on that, on memorization, no critical thinking, right? No problem. I mean, they do teach problem solving skills, but math, that's what math is. Math is, it's your first, is your first introduction to problem solving, pattern recognition, right? This is why math is so important. And it also evaluates critical thinking. There's a correlation there with math and intelligence, but I think the traditional school model focused too much on memorization, and there needs to be a shift of approach. And I don't care how much money you spend on the traditional model. We have I don't know how long school's been around. 200? No, not that long. Maybe 100 years of government schooling, and the results are in, right? This is why I like private school, right? Private school, if you want a different approach of education, Montessori is an example, right? You can do a Christian private school, right? There's private schools of different philosophies. They have slightly different wrinkles to how they want to teach your kids, and the results show. It gives the kids a different experience. And I just think in 2023, the time of generalized education, I think that's done. I think that's like, you can't create a one-size-fit-all solution for all kids, right? Look, $45 million for social workers and psychologists, I don't think that's needed. And here's the thing too, there's a blurred line that this is a way government tried to encroach on people. Who needs social workers? Most parents aren't that bad. Like if you look at the parents that abuse their kids, they're a minority. The cops can handle this. Why we need to, like, a teacher can essentially cover this role. Hey, I noticed the kid's doing this. They don't need to go to a specialist. The teacher just go, hey, look, I'm reporting this kid. Hey, authorities, you handle it. I don't think we need a specific budget for that for government schools. That's a challenge, a critique I'll have. Behavioral health program, I think that's wasted money right here. Athletic programs, that's fine, because I think there's correlation that physical education helps with cognitive abilities. This is where I think this is the biggest gripe. I was like, yo, what we need art teachers for, right? I think we need to focus more on the sciences, because right now we've been focusing a lot on the arts, and you wonder why we have all this woke mind virus going on in our current culture, right? Re-engagement centers. This is something I think this is the parents' job right here, right? So now the health suites, supporting students that's experiencing homelessness. This is all parents. This is parents right here. This, I'm not sure, but this is all parents right here, right? And I think in our current culture, parents has been pacified almost, like, to take a more of a passive role in our society. Because in my view, the parent is the first teacher the kid is actually exposed to. It's the parent's job to teach and guide the child on the ways it should go. And I see teaching as a service that you're offering, and that service relies heavily on trust. And if I as a parent cannot trust you to give my kid the best possible educational outcome, hey, you deserve to lose budgeting. But there's no penalty. And I think that's also another reason why public school, in my view, is the worst option available in our education system, is that there's no incentive structure that breeds quality, that breeds performance. Because if a teacher was paid based on their performance, I think the quality of education would be a lot higher. And I think that our low performance in schools won't change that significantly until there's some type of performance-based metric that we're measuring a lot of these teachers by. Because right now, the way the current teacher union is set up, it protects the weakest teachers, right? Teachers who don't teach at the expense of good teachers. Bad teachers get away scot-free. It's such a hassle to fire bad teachers, right? If a teacher's doing a bad job, all they do is move that teacher to a F school. They move it to another district, and these kind of incentives kind of incentivize people to just be mediocre in a way. There's no way to sugarcoating this, right? So here you go. Students is at 40%. High school, Baltimore failed math proficiency exam, educational suicide. This was in September 2023. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, right? And there's also engagement too. Like, this is the parents too. If the parents have to hold these kids accountable and actually help their kids, but if it's a predominantly black neighborhood, if it's poor, there's a high likelihood that there's a large percentage of single mothers in that area, and they don't have time to actually help and tutor their kids and mentor their kids, right? And I think there's studies showing, a lot of public school teachers will agree with me here, that a lot of parents aren't academically involved with their kids, and they show that highly engaged parents, their students perform better than students whose parents are not engaged academically with them. So there's a correlation there, and I think no amount of spend is gonna fix that problem, right? Here's another story from the Hill, just in case someone says this is a biased take or I'm only seeing it from one way. More money for schools doesn't always mean better outcomes for kids, right? It's just a nuanced thing, but I'm pretty sure we're going to hear a lot about this in the debates, right? So let's get into, so I'm done with my little, I guess, my opener. And I want to kind of focus on like an example of how school is not about education per se. Because what is education? To me, education is something where you learn demonstrable proof, demonstrable facts, theories that have been tested and proven in reality, and you can conclude that they're good. That's good information. And you want to educate kids with good information, not indoctrinate them in bad or biased or warped information or a warped conclusion. Because if you reach a bad conclusion, you're going to get a bad result. All you have to do is look at math. When you make a false assumption with the math formula, you're going to get a wrong conclusion. That's what math teaches you. So I'm going to go to my favorite historian, Dinesh D'Souza. And there's a part I want to focus on, which is the fake history, right? So this is one big part about education too, is that a lot of public schools like to focus on, like, essentially this is where I get conflicted with, okay, are you trying to indoctrinate my kid or are you trying to give them good information? History. Are you trying to indoctrinate my kid to say that America is a bad country, is an evil country, and it shouldn't allow to exist because it did bad things in the past? Like it's the only country in the world that did something bad in the past? Or you're actually trying to teach my kid accurate information, right? And so in this video, Dinesh is going to get confronted, right, by a guy. I don't know his political affiliation. I'm assuming he's a liberal. And he's going to call Dinesh, saying that he's propagating fake history. And I wish if teaching was more based on, hey, here's demonstrable proof. Because as a teacher, you're not the authority on what's true or not. I never see teachers as an authority. I don't even see journalists as an authority like that. Even people in authority, I don't see them as an authority. The only authority you have is, hey, I pointed at information, and based on this information, this is how I arrived to this conclusion. Show your work. This is something you learn in math. Show your work. And I like the ability, I have a bias, I have a preference for people who can show their work. If you saying someone's a liar, but you can't tell me how they're a liar, I'm less inclined to believe you. But hey, I digress. You guys need a break from my voice. So let's hear the dialogue between them, and then I'll give my breakdown after this little clip I'm going to show. Let's take a look.
Nothing. What threat do I pose to you? You've kind of thrown out some fairly incendiary facts or claims. The year before the Civil War, not a single Republican owned a slave. The big switch is a lie. Nixon's strategy is a hoax. We hear a lot about fake news, and you're talking about fake history. But I only hear you talking about it. Why don't I hear others? I don't see conservatives out in the street with their children's history books, burning them in a pile. I don't see students here at this university taking their history books and complaining about the falsehoods in it. So
Yeah, but this is the problem with the education system. If you don't know the information you're being fed is false, how would you have the means to call it out? And this is the problem I have with the education system. This guy says, "Hey, you're bringing out false history because I don't hear other historians talk about it." That's not a credible argument in my view. Just because other people don't talk about something that one person bring up doesn't mean that person is wrong. It just means those people are not educated or not aware of the fallacy or the flaw, right? And just because only one person, oh, Dinesh, you're the only one that speaks about this history. I don't see anyone else mentioning this, therefore you're not credible. I'm like, no, like it only took one man to believe that man can fly in the sky, the Wayne brothers, and they went out and did it. They had to show people it was possible, right? And this is the fallacy that I'm seeing in the education system, is that this is an indoctrination. The indoctrination requires, oh, if the people in authority are not bringing this topic up, therefore it must not be true. Therefore, it's not unquestionable. This is how you get dogmatic education. This is how wokeness is infecting debate about education, about any topic, right? This is why our kids are coming out dumber and dumber and dumber, because they're being brought up in a institution, an education system that, in my view, values people viewing the world a specific way, regardless of what the evidence or proof that the alternative view has. But I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Why is that? And would you be willing to come to this university and debate our top scholars on these topics?
The answer is absolutely yes. Not only do I welcome that opportunity, but I will debate up to 6 opponents at the same time. My leading public critic on this, the Princeton historian Kevin Cruz, who says things like there was a big switch, and then when I point out to him that there wasn't, he says, what about Jesse Helms? What about Trent Lott? What about John Tower? And I say, well, let's not debate apples and oranges. Those men are not Dixiecrats. Just to find a Southern Democrat who became a Republican isn't going to make your case. You have to find racist Dixiecrats and show me that those guys, who are countable. If you Google racist Dixiecrats, a whole number of names will come up on your phone. We're talking about those guys. And so I told Kevin Cruz, why don't I come to your home campus, Princeton University? Let's have a debate in front of your own students. You have all the advantages of being on your home ground. You're going to have the home team advantage. His response, I won't do it.
And why you guys think that is, right? Remember, this is the debate about the U.S. educational system. If the U.S. educational system is supposedly about, hey, we want to inform our citizens, the future of our country, because that's what education is. He who controls the youth controls the future. A famous socialist has said that. So what is explaining it to me is the fact that they don't want to expose the kids to alternative viewpoints. And I think this is one of the biggest problems with the educational system in the U.S. today is that it's too ideologically driven. And now I don't have a problem with that ideological driven education system if the alternative or the contrarian view is allowed to express itself, right? This is why I like the idea that there should be in textbooks, right? Let's say there's a view in history, and the history say, hey, this is how the liberals see history on this event. Here's how the conservatives see history at this event. Now, class, we're going to do a paper. You guys are going to do an essay and line out why you believe this side over this side, whoever you prefer. Tell me the holes in the other person's argument. Tell me the pros of the other person's argument. And we can have a debate right here amongst ourselves. Wouldn't that mean, wouldn't my case study prove that, hey, Kenny wants education to be the core of what is the prioritization of the educational system? But if I wanted to indoctrinate people, I only listen to one view. Teachers unions, I always make this point. Teacher unions are overwhelmingly Democratic. They vote for the Democratic Party. They fundraise for the Democratic Party. They support the Democratic Party. They send money to the Democratic Party. To me, that's a bias. So if they're filtering information, you don't think they'll filter information through their bias? The answer is yes. Because if I reverse it, if I say, hey, most teacher unions were conservative, people want to make the argument, oh, look at all the PAC money. They do the same they launch the same argument against PragerU. Oh, PragerU, we shouldn't be allowing political information into public schools because now PragerU has been considered as allowed to be taught in schools now. And the left is mad. The progressives are mad. They're like, oh my God, this is politically driven material. But they've been doing it the whole time. They've been giving our kids politically driven material for 50 plus years now. This is why most people are passively lean towards the Democratic Party. Hollywood, the teachers unions, who's overwhelmingly Democrat, right? The Department of Education, who funds it a lot, who supports it a lot. The Democratic Party does, because it serves their ends. And when I pointed out to black people, hey, you voted for the Democratic Party most likely out of ignorance. And they go, oh no, black people don't support Democrats just because we're ignorant. It's because we know we hip to the real game. I said, okay, most of y'all are educated by the public school system that is primarily run by liberals, right? Teachers are overwhelmingly liberal. Teacher unions are overwhelmingly liberal, right? The social behavior learning stuff, all these people, bro, I'm telling you, education, the public school, the reality is it transmits values either passively or actively. And this is the kind of indoctrination that a lot of people are concerned about, that you're not feeding our kids accurate and good information. This is why a lot of parents are nervous about the whole transgender stuff that y'all pushing, because because we know you're trying to influence our kids. There's a study out there that says like under the age of 7, your kid process things subconsciously. That means they're not fully aware of their surroundings until after they turn 7 years old. So kids that are very impressionable, you want to put this in material out there, this suggestive material in front of them. For what ends? To convert people or to transmit your values to the next generation. And that is, in my view, that is the real goal of education. This is the real priority of these educational system in the US. It's not to actually educate our kids. It's not actually make our kids smarter, because of smart people and educated and knowledgeable people will be able to be vigilant and maintain the republic. But you can't control people like that. That's why they want you dumb and ignorant. Not dumb and ignorant. They want you ignorant and in their ideological wheelhouse, because then it's easier for you to control you. It's easier for you to be like, hey, vote for Democrat, vote blue no matter who. That's the kind of population that they want. And there's too many like signs that I see that this is the case. This is why personally I'm boycotting it. And if I do put my kids in school, it's most likely going to be a private school, because I believe, there's no one size fit all solution is what got us here in the first place. Now we got internet personalities fighting back against this, and I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to see it. But I think we need to have a concerted effort, because at the end of the day, this is the future. Education determines the future of a country. And you see how Gen Z is. Can't answer basic questions. Don't even know when their country was founded on. Can't answer basic questions because of the way the educational system has brought them up. But they're graduating high school at a higher rate, but they can't read, write, or do arithmetic. How's that a success? But if you ask them anything about politics, oh, socialism is good, nationalized healthcare, I'm entitled to this, I'm entitled to that. Where do they get these ideas from? From public school. They're transmitting these ideas. Here you go, 1619 Project. That's a political concept. No, they're quiet about it. But God forbid, PragerU gets approved to be taught in public schools. They throwing a whole hissy fit over it. But when 1619 was going on here, giving revisionist history to our youth, not a peep out of the left. And this is the problem I have with the left. Everyone deserves to be a liberal and nothing else. That is the purpose of the education system in the United States right now, because it's controlled by these liberal ideologues. Academic college is overwhelmingly left. Look up the research, right? No one wants to hint out the college bias in that. When you get taught any information, you're getting a liberal bias no matter where you're going. And when you get conservatives speaking out against it, you want to try to paint them as revisionist, false history, fake history. because they don't have the authority in your eyes. Because, oh, this institution is run by us, therefore it has authority, it has credibility. No, what has credibility is the facts and evidence that you can prove and showcase to us. That's what has credibility. But I digress. Let's get back into the video.
He refuses. He says it's not the proper format to resolve these issues. Think of it. Debate is not a proper format to resolve an important difference of agreement. And I take that to really mean that what he's saying is, look, here at Princeton, we have enough leftists in the history department that we've got our students completely brainwashed. Your type is not.
See, that's why that's the problem. Because when we go into the vice debate, they're gonna ask questions about what is the purpose of education, and it sounds like to me like these teachers who's likely to be liberal, they put they like to frame it in a very colorful way, but the reality is that's what they're doing. They're brainwashing you, aka, hey, only allowing you to be exposed to one specific view to the point where you think that these things are self-evident, that there's no alternative paradigm, right? And then when someone come out and questions the paradigm, you see it as, oh my God, you must be evil, because how can you possibly disagree with this? And this is how we get the left that we have today. This is how you get the calling that we have today, the entitlement. Because these people have never been challenged in a day in their life. College used to be the place where you have your ideas challenged and where you had a great opportunity to self-reflect. Not if you're a lefty, not if you're a liberal, because these institutions have been captured by people who share your worldview. So if an institution is majority your worldview, that's an echo chamber. College is an echo chamber. High school, middle school, if you go to a public school anyway, echo chamber. Because liberals, Democrats, they have a lot of influence in that department because they invest heavily in these government programs, aka Department of Education. This is why I want Department of Education abolished, defunded, removed, because I don't think some arbitrary person, some arbitrary bureaucrat can make decisions on the behalf of individual people, individual families, and know what's best for them in general. I think those people in those specific situations have a better understanding of their circumstances, their weaknesses, their strengths, and they'll be able to make a better judgment call with the funds. This is why I'm a big proponent of school choice. That's why, because it puts the choice in the hands of the parents, and because they're responsible, they know their kids best. Not some bureaucrat all the way in Washington that has no idea why these Baltimore kids are failing. They think, oh, money's the problem. Let's just throw money at Baltimore. Test score still going down. They still failing at math. They're like, well, what's going on? I guess we got to throw more money on it. Like, and eventually you got to be like, money's not the problem. Let's zoom in and look at it from a process perspective. What is going on in Baltimore? They won't do that. They don't have the time to do that. They're worried about fundraising, keeping their power, keeping their position in government. And they throw you scraps and it's like, hey, look what we did. We invested so much money in education. Vote for me. Look what we done for education. But there's studies that show there's no causation with funding and the educational outcome. But I've been rambling. I need to get it through the video. So let's continue. It's almost about to wrap up.
Going to be welcome here because the only thing you can do is make converts, and that's going to be incendiary for us. So we're not going to let that happen.
It seems as though.
So yeah, that's all I wanted to show on that clip. And it seems like education system is all about just keeping people in your ideological wheelhouse, creating echo chambers, creating safe space, because that's what safe space is. I don't want to hear things that challenge my worldview. If I believe I'm a woman, I don't want to be exposed to a person that thinks that I'm actually a man. I want to cancel you. This is where all this stuff comes from. Now, this will be the last part. I won't go into it, probably the first minute in. And you're going to hear somehow unfactual some of these people are. And I think schools, this is a disservice to our whole school system, because this guy's in college. How he got to college and think that this was good information? Let's take a look.
So recently I've been honestly doing my research within wealth inequality within the United States. And the statistics, honestly, for me has been absolutely shocking, in which 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And we have about 30 million Americans that are not on healthcare. Now, within the last 40 years, we've been championing a lot of Reaganomics essentially, that really champion tax breaks on the very wealthy of our society in order to actually spur on more entrepreneurship and job opportunity in America. Meanwhile, many people in Appalachia and other places around the country have been starting to lose their jobs in factory towns that Trump did highlight in the 2016 election, which I will give him to his credit. However, there has been no change. Absolutely none. And for the last 40 years, we've been trying the same nonsense continuously over and over, and yet the middle and working class people who wake up every day in the morning to feed their kids, so on and so forth, are going broke, trying to pay for medical bills, trying to just simply feed their families. And we haven't really seen many of these companies really do much about it. Wealth inequality has grown up to a tremendous size in which now the middle class is starting to shrink.
So, I know he rambled in there for a straight minute, but if you ask, just some prime questions like, okay, what do you, healthcare? If you look at the stats about frequency of healthcare, most people don't suffer, the type of injuries or health events that would make people bankrupt, right? Most of your healthcare is getting a checkup. That's more common. You getting a checkup, you're getting I forgot what it was called, a physical, right? Those are the more frequent reasons people go into clinics and to the hospital to get evaluated. Hey, minor things, catastrophic things like, I got into a car accident and if I don't get surgery, I'm gonna lose my arm. Those things are very they're not very frequent compared to what I pointed out before. So this idea that people are on the everyday basis going broke because of Medicare and all this stuff, or they need Medicare, healthcare, I don't think it's right. This is why I say, hey, there's a distinction with conservatives and liberals is what is a right and versus a privilege. A right is I could do something without having the permission or consent of someone else. A privilege is, hey, I need someone's consent to be able to gain a service or a product, right? For instance, healthcare is a prime example. If a doctor say, hey, I don't want to do surgery on you, you can't force that doctor to do surgery on you, right? This is why I think socialism or nationalizing things creates such inefficiency, because it creates a bad incentive, right? But he finished rambling on. He said, oh, no, doesn't work. We got to go through the same thing over and over again. And I just wish that if our educators followed evidence, proof, demonstrable facts, more than their ideological, hey, what sounds good? I want to sell hope. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I think would have been a lot tougher, a lot more resilient society. Because I think right now our culture is very fragile, right? And I mean that culturally, I won't even say spiritually, but it's just the mindset of the youth. You see it from millennials to Gen Z. Gen Z is worse than the millennials. It can't continue anymore, right? This is why they say weak people create hard times. But I digress.
And the very top 1% of 1% is paying a lower tax rate at 23% than the bottom 50% of the country, which is paying at 24%.
So that was a lie, right? Especially if you watch my video, The Inconvenient Truth about the progressive tax, that was a lie. The bottom 50% of Americans, tax-paying Americans, pay zero in taxes. All the taxes are paid by the top 50% of taxpayers. 70% of the taxes are paid by the top 10% of taxpayers in the country. 70% of the taxes are paid by 10% of the population. And those are the wealthiest those are the wealthiest taxpayers in our country. And he's trying to say that they pay less taxes than the bottom. All you had to do is do a Google search, bro. How you gonna tax? It's we have a progressive tax rate, but he's probably talking about capital gains. But even then, how you able to pay your taxes? You're not a business owner. You're an employee. So therefore, your employer pays half your taxes for you, and out of your own earnings that you produce, you pay taxes as well. You pay that other half of it too. It's people don't notice how interconnected we are in capitalism, right? But it's a very, I digress.
So how does per se your style of economics per se solve that?
Well, I think we start by looking. You've said a lot of stuff, and I think I want to zoom in a little bit more. Okay, let's start with what you said at the end. According to you, the lowest quartile or the lowest quintile of our society is paying a higher rate of taxation of income tax than the very top rate. Okay, first of all, that is not even possible because the lowest quintile doesn't earn enough to pay any income taxes at all. The lowest quintile in this society pays zero in federal income tax. That's a fact. That's a fact. You don't owe any taxes. Just look up the tax code.
Sorry.
You don't. You look up the lowest quintile at income.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. So he's here shaking his head. I'm like, what are you shaking your head for? That's facts. That's evidence. And this is the kind of this is the part of our educational system, right? We got a lot of kids like that. Like, you can tell them facts and evidence. They have nothing to disprove it. They just no, it goes against what I feel like it is. No, that can't be the case, right? They don't follow reality. They follow ideology. And I think this has become the purpose of the education system in the US. Right? And I think we're evaluating different goals here. And this is why I think a lot of parents are pulling their kids out of the schools, right? COVID was a blessing in disguise. It exposed what these teachers are actually doing, how they actually are, what they're actually doing in our education system, right? And it's a bad incentive structure that we have currently set up in our education system. And I think no real change is going to happen unless we change the incentive. So we have to create a disincentive. Hey, parents won't put their kids into any woke schools. If you're teaching wokeness, prepare to lose students. I think if that becomes a cultural trend, some of this stuff will change. But I think none of this really the source of this stuff, you need to cut the head off of the snake, and that's the Department of Education. I think we need to remove any centralized authority that can create this one size, hey, this is what all the public schools teach, because end of the day, public schools was teaching 76% of our students. But I digress.
And then you pick up the tax tables, and you will see that the tax rate on that income, the top of that quintile, is 0%. They pay nothing. Okay. Now, the data on the top people, because the top rate in America is 37%. That's only federal. That doesn't count state tax. If you live in New York State, you know what the state taxes are, 9%. Add it to the 37, you come to 46. Add the local taxes. If you're a wealthy guy in America, you're basically being taxed at a 50% tax rate.
And you get the least amount of benefit from it, right? Easily disprovable, right? You saw how the guy came in. Here's how I think it is. Here's how I feel the system is. I feel like the bottom pays more taxes than the rich. And then when you break down the evidence, you're like, okay, if you make this amount of money, if you live in this city, you live in this county, you're getting taxed half your money because you're ultra wealthy. If you bring out the fact that most of the taxes are generated from the top 1% and the bottom 50 pays zero in taxes, he has nothing to conflate with that with. He has nothing to really challenge that assertion, right? But he thinks he's right. He's shaking his head. No, it can't be, right? I think I made my case, right? So this is kind of the ideas that's really funneling my opinions or my views on education system. So now we're going to get into the vice debate. I'm pretty sure this is what people will be watching the video for. And we'll go through as far as we can. And then I have a cutoff time at 8 o'clock. So let's get into it before I run out of time. So let's take a look.
Really broadly, what's the purpose of education?
I think the purpose of education is twofold. One, to help build and support the individual, but also help build and support society as a whole. Because even though you may not have a kid in education, you pay taxes to public school because we as a society depend on and need education for society to work.
I think the purpose of education is to educate and not indoctrinate. And I think that in a lot of ways we've strayed from that and the original purpose of what it's supposed to be.
I agree with that. Obviously I would agree with CJ, but the whole point, like you saw how she kind of masked it with colorful language. Hey, we're here to educate. We want to instill values in the individual. We want to empower the individual. We want to. All right, that's fine. But with what, right? If you ask them to define what that is, it's ideology. It sounds like, right? And that's why I'm saying this is like we need to get like this stats out there with Pew Research that majority of Americans don't even agree on basic facts. That's the country we're at right now. Education is at the core of that. I'm being dead serious. Majority of Americans cannot agree on basic facts because of what's going on here. Because people are mixing ideology with knowledge. Ideals. What is a man? What a man who's willing to fight for his ideas is willing to lie. So what happens if a person like that is in your education system? What is that person in charge of your education system, creating the curriculums? What's going to stop him from lying about, oh yeah, Democrats are the good guys and Republicans are the bad guys? Oh, the party switch. Obvious lie. Fake history. Lincoln was a Democrat. Obvious lie, right? What? Oh, but the kids don't know that. The kids don't have the knowledge, the experience, or even a place where they can get a contrarian view to that claim, because obviously kids look to authority to like guide them, help them, protect them. This is why kids are the most vulnerable people in our society, and we're giving a lot of people trust over them. And a lot of parents found out in 2020 that trust was being misused. He who controls the youth controls the future. And if we allow these people to continue transmitting false information, contested information as truth, subjective ideology as an education, as knowledge, we're going to get the country we're going to get. Don't be surprised when these people vote in socialism, because essentially that will what it'll lead to. Democracy will lead to socialism. So if this education system that's responsible for educating 76% of your children are educating your kids to have a left-wing slant towards them, and they come out with a left-wing politician, they'll vote them in. 76% of your youth. Wait 18 years. This is why the Democrats always push for the voting age to be younger, because they know, hey, these people, we have a big control over their influence. Social media is a big proponent of this as well. Heavy left-wing bias. But I digress.
I think it should be intelligence and character. I think you should be able to understand the world around you and understand who you are and your purpose and try to make the world a better place. I think that it has to be a mix of the skills, memorizing the formulas, understanding the world around you, but then also what to do with it.
And just to go off that, the idea that education, you have to balance the importance of memorizing the quadratic formula while simultaneously addressing social and political issues respectively, so children have both the know-how, general knowledge, and also kind of self-awareness and character, so they're able to develop their own opinions.
Yeah, I think that the purpose of education is to understand the world that you exist in and use that understanding as a means for creating change or even understanding yourself on a deeper level.
I believe the purpose is simply just to prepare the individual to be successful in the society that they exist in.
Critical thinking, learn how to live out your full potential so you can be independent, and everything else really flows from there.
The purpose of education is to prepare children for the real life and also make sure that they are literate.
So I think the purpose is to raise the next generation of leaders. And when you think about what you want your leaders to be like, you want them to be knowledgeable, and you want them to be compassionate, you want them to be self-aware, you want them to understand the best way to move forward, not just for themselves personally, but for their whole community.
And that's I think she had the most honest answer, right? Because essentially that's how they view these kids. Oh my God, these are going to be the future politicians and people of our country. Let me impress upon them now my ideas, my thoughts, my beliefs, right? And that's essentially used to be the job of the parents. And this is what I'm saying. I think it took a long march through the institutions. It took a long time for our culture to come to the point where parents see it as normal to, okay, our kids hit a certain age, out of the house you go. And I think it's a lot of this stuff about, critical thinking, and they come to their own independent conclusions. I think that's a lie. I don't think people actually come to conclusions independently, because at the end of the day, you don't come to conclusions without help, without guidance, right? Like I said, I always make the argument with the IQ stuff. If I get a guy with high IQ and I feed him wrong information from 7 years old to 18, and I get a lower IQ person and I fed him good information from 7 to 18, who's going to be, and I had them to debate about general issues, who's going to come out looking smarter? The person that has the good information, because good information is what? Credible, demonstratable, right? Falsifiable, right? You can prove, okay, hey, look, I can fudge the numbers because I know how it actually works in reality. And I think that this focus on compassion and character, I honestly believe those are like filler words. Those are a shield or a cover to hide what they're actually doing. And that is, I'm teaching a worldview to your kids, an ideology to your kids, so they come out more like me. Look at the time. I already make the stats. Parents spend on average, 50 minutes with their kids? These teachers spend 8 times longer with your kids than you do. They spend 8 times more, 8 times more time with your kids than you do. They have a heavy influence on you. Then you got social media. This is why I say parents need to take back control and be more assertive in the transmission of values to their kids, because these teachers have too much influence over our children. That's what I believe anyway. But I digress. Let's continue with the video.
When we talk about who's doing the educating, who should decide what's being taught?
Parents. I think that parents should have a huge say in what's going on in the classroom because it's their kids, not ours. As a public school teacher 15 years, I was always aware that these are not my children. We have to make sure that we're respecting parents and their beliefs and their values.
It's called boundaries, right? And this is one thing that the left has a big issue, and this is why they get themselves in trouble, especially with this issue, is that teachers are come out here trying to challenge, like they trying to remove language, right? And this is a point that Michael Knowles make in his book Speechless. You control speech, you control thought. So they don't want kids to use parents in mom, dad, parent, guardian, whatever. They like to say caretakers. We're all caretakers here because technically it's true. I'm a caretaker. I'm his parent. I'm a caretaker, but it's to remove that hierarchy, that level of importance from the kid's perspective. This is brainwashing tactics, right? Oh, we don't call your mom, we don't call him mom, we don't call him dad. It's the same thing with partner. Instead of calling your wife, your husband, no, that's my partner, because they want to be inclusive. These are pretexts. This is why I said, like, I think this is why I have trust issues with these liberals, because I think a lot of their phraseology is used to try to position themselves to seem moral, to seem virtuous, to look good, but they're not actually doing good, right? I'm just saying, because the results speak for itself. The kids are not performing well in these schools, right? These kids are not, like, can't critically think. They're not very knowledgeable on a lot of subjects, but they're knowledgeable about BLM. They're knowledgeable about left-wing politics, climate change, to the point where now they got climate change anxiety. Who put the anxiety in them? Not their parents. I have a strong feeling it wasn't the parents that did that. It was that teacher they spent 8 hours a day with. And God forbid, bro, I don't want my kids being taught by people like that. Ideologically driven people. I don't want my kids for that. No. I trust I know my intentions with my kids. I don't know the intentions of other people with my kids. And I think it's time that parents develop a very strong skepticism about the Department of Education, teachers unions, their motives. Are they really doing things for the best interest of the child or only the best interest of themselves? It's hard to argue they're not doing things for the best interest of themselves. Heavily liberal institution. They fight for pay, even though there's no correlation that spending more money will increase the academic achievements of their students, but they're still pushing for it. Why? Who benefits from that? They do. Who benefits from your kids, your parents not knowing what's going on in their children's curriculum or what they're being taught? The parents do. The teachers do. The teachers get to teach your kid anything. They can teach your kid to be an atheist and you're a Christian. But God forbid something happened to the kid. Who's responsible for feeding that kid? Paying that kid's medical bills, right? You are, as the parent. You have the responsibility, therefore you have the authority. That's why I say a teacher is not at the same level as a parent. Because the minute ish hit the fan, it's on you. This is why I don't believe these teachers should be even talking about transgenderism or none of that with our kids. Because at the end of the day, when that kid transitioned into the opposite sex, and he find out that he can never be the opposite sex, and he's going through suicide ideation, right? He's in depression. He can't go and find that teacher who convinced him when he was 8, 9, 10 years old that he's really a girl when actually he's a boy. You have to deal with that as a parent. Therefore, it's not the teacher's call to hide important information like that that could have a drastic, heavy impact on an individual's life. That's a parent's call, because at the end of the day, I'm that kid's parent for life. I'm my son's father for life. Until I die, I'm that kid's father. You're his teacher, maybe for a semester. Yet I'm supposed to sit here and expect and respect that you have the same level of authority as I do in the eyes of the state. Get out of here. This is something the left better respect. They better respect the boundaries of the parents, or this can turn upside down real quick. But I digress.
I think the Constitution agrees with that.
Yes.
Here in America, ranging back to the early 1900s, plenty of Supreme Court cases have ruled in that favor that it is the parents' right ultimately to decide a child's education, medical needs, etc.
I would push back, though, and say that there does need to be collaboration, right? I completely respect your idea of it is not our job as educators to put forth a belief in front of children, right? That includes not perpetuating parents' beliefs in the classroom as well. In my opinion, that would be keeping a non-biased viewpoint, simply presenting issues, and then allowing kids to decide for themselves.
Kids don't have the life experience to decide for themselves what is correct or what is not. Right? That's what the parents are there for. That I said the parents are the tutorial. When you start a game, the game kind of handhelds you through the process, and they say, okay, you got your bearings. Okay, go out and play the game. That's parenthood. My kids are going to a tutorial right now, and I'm preparing them for life. That's my job. But no, you're not supposed to teach any ideology, no worldview. Not it's supposed to expose them to nothing. No, that ain't your job. In my view, that's not your job, teacher. Your teacher is, hey, I got to make sure you have the skills to read. I got to make sure you have the skills to write, speak. It needs to be something tangible and measurable. That's what you're supposed to teach, teacher. Not ideas, not ideology, right? Maybe you can inform them about politics, but at the end of it, you better say, hey, talk to your parents. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to deal with that mess. You feed my kid false information, and then you find out you're in the wrong, but you spent 8 hours with my kid. So who's going to have more influence over my kid? Like it makes no sense. And it's not a collaborative relationship. Right? It's not. I'm just being honest. Because if the parents decide, hey, we're gonna move to Tennessee. Oh, this is a collaborative process. No, the kid's coming out of the school. It ain't no collaborative nothing. So why do you have an assumption that the teachers need the parents need to come to you and collaborate on what's going on? I believe, hey, make sure the parents are on the same page. Make sure that the parents are supporting the academic process for the child, so they can perform at their best and they have the best chance at success in schools. Hey, I'm fine with that. But it has to be clearly defined. It can't be this vague, wishy-washy. And I think parents need to stop being pushed around by these people who pry on our sympathies, on our kindness, on our pity. Oh, you people just want to be accepted. No, I think they're gonna push. And what Matt Walsh called it, cry bullying. They keep crying. Eventually, you're going to cry wolf a little bit too much. And parents are going to be like, no, we're done with this. But I digress.
I would agree that I think it needs to be a collaborative effort. The way that we decide curriculum in Texas is that work groups comprised of community members, educators, parents, even in some cases students and public service officials come together to draft curriculum plans, and then it's ultimately decided on by our State Board of Education, which has a lot of kind of assistance from parents as well. So I think that kind of format can be really effective because it also empowers students to become involved in the fate of their education. And as a student myself, I think that that's incredibly important because our perspectives need to be heard as well.
The voices of parents need to be heard in that equation. But unfortunately, what we've seen recently is that parents' voices have been demonized in this process. You've seen parents who've criticized local school boards labeled terrorists simply for caring about the quality of their education that their child is receiving.
And this is where my homeschoolingness comes out, is that if you want to influence my child, it has to be with my consent. It's like, look, I'm the gatekeeper, bro. I protect my kid. I'm like, if you can't take my criticism constructively and act on it and change it, I'm gonna make changes too. And there ain't gonna be no negotiating with me. And look, I don't know. Maybe I'm harsh. I don't know what I am, but I believe in raising strong children, right? Because you don't pray for an easy life. You pray for the strength to endure a hard one. That's my philosophy. And that's what I mean. That's the values I'm going to impart onto my kid. Not this empathy, not this kindness. Like, no one owes you anything. You're not entitled to anything. Go out there and you have to earn what you get. You don't deserve anything. You have to earn everything. That's the kind of mindset I want my kids walking around with. Right? But it counters a lot against what these school board members want. When these school board members get criticized by these parents, you see them like, yeah, hurry up. We know you can't afford to go anywhere else. This is why they hate school choice, because if parents had if school choice was universal throughout the state of the United States, these school board people will be listening a lot more intently and acting on the criticism they receive from parents instead of demonizing them as terrorists. You see how they use language? Oh, you're a bad person because you go against what we think is best for your child. And that's the reality of this language. Word games. I digress, though.
These teachers are temporary caretakers. When they come back home, it's the parent who has to explain that this is this radical belief that was put in front of you. This was this idea that you've never been raised around that parent now has to explain. And at the end of the day, that isn't just confined to a classroom. Now it's bleeding into their upbringing. And there's only one person responsible for their upbringing, and it's the parents. It's not the educator, it's not the teacher, it's their parents.
I like the idea of the collaboration, and obviously parents' voices belong at that table. I also like the emphasis on students having a say in this, and also other people adults that aren't parents. I'm invested in that too, even though I don't have children of my own. And I hear what you're saying about having to, parents needing to confront or address, I guess, what kids are learning at school. But giving kids the exposure to other ideas or other things that they wouldn't be exposed to otherwise is, I think, part of what's going to help raise the next generation of.
My only problem is, what is the importance of explaining to kids that gay people exist? Let's argue the functionality of that. My kid's obviously gonna see. It's like arguing, hey, your son needs to know that black people exist. He's gonna see it out in reality. Kids are naturally curious. My son's asking about skin color right now. He said, "Daddy's brown, mommy is," and he don't know how to say white, but he that's what he's trying to insinuate. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Kids are naturally curious. He don't need to go to a school, sit down, and have someone to explain him life. No, he's gonna walk into it. He's gonna, oh, what are these, mom? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what the intention is of a teacher explaining something that is essentially tied to sexuality, right? Because in my view, there's no such thing as a gay kid because they haven't hit puberty yet, right? And you explaining him, I'm like, okay, how can I not take that as a negative? If I explain something to my kid, it's likely that you can understand that my intent is not to groom my child. But if you're explaining something to my kid, I can't discern your intentions with my child. This is why, for the safety of the parents and the teachers, they shouldn't be allowed to discuss anything sexually explicit, anything to deal with sexuality, because I think that's too young for children to learn. That's not a different idea. That's not exposing them to a different idea. That's like saying, okay, we learned about capitalism. Let's expose them to socialism. I have no problem with that. Right? These things, they have merit, right? But when they try to bundle, just like in Congress, they try to bundle up everything all together and say, hey, you need to agree with the thing holistically. And if you don't, they'll pick out the good of it and say, oh, you don't agree with kids being exposed to different ideas? Are you a bigot? Echo chamber? It's the same concept they're doing here. Conflating, hiding, vagueness. This is why they don't like defining things. But, I digress.
Of people that are able to look outside their own lived experience.
But I think that oftentimes those different ideas are presented in the classroom as a student as the only idea. When you're being taught that, there's this many genders or anything like this, where you haven't been exposed to that in your own household, it's being presented as the end all be all when it actually isn't. It's about educating and not indoctrinating. As long as that is presented as a counterpoint to, well, there's people who believe this, but there's also people who believe this, that's okay. The reality of it is that in most classrooms across the country, that isn't what's happening.
And to piggyback off of that, one side is labeled as a bigot, white supremacist, homophobic. There's a lot of parents in America that are Christian or, they believe in two genders, gender binary. And if you say that as a teacher, especially, you could be labeled as homophobic. So there isn't this unbiased classroom because there's one side that can't really be
contrarian. Yeah, they see, and this is the problem I have. You claim that, hey, we want a neutral playground, we want a neutral environment where kids are exposed to different ideas, but one idea is shunned as, oh no, that's hate speech. Oh no, that's bad. But this idea, no, that's fine. Oh no, it's good. It's good. And I'm like, you're it's contradicting. That's what I'm saying. These liberal teachers don't believe anyone has a right to be anything else but a liberal. And they present and how they present their different ideas. Oh, we want to present liberal ideas to you. Especially if you come from a Christian household. Oh yeah, we really want to go after you. We really want to expose you. But you don't do the other side justice. And in my view, every human being is biased. So if you leave it up to their discretion, no matter how, bias is going to come play a part into it, especially what information you want to expose yourself, what information you know yourself. Because I don't know, maybe this me being, maybe I'm being arrogant here, maybe. But I think I know a lot more on a variety of topics on the top of my head than most teachers know with a book in their hand, right? Because anyway, the book itself, how you know that book is not filtered information? If the book taught let's say we're doing U.S. history class, and you got a book, and you want to say, hey, we're going to talk about, it's Black History Month, we're talking about 1619 Project, which I argue is revisionist history, is not real history, it's filtered history. They left out a lot of things between 1619 and current year, but they'll pretend that's history. Is that not bias? Is that not biased information? But if another teacher come in and they come in with a PragerU pamphlet talking about U.S. history, the left will call it, the political ideology shouldn't be taught in school. But what about the 1619 Project? They were talking about BLM. What about that? Isn't that not politically activism either? Isn't that a political ideology? They pick and choose when they want to apply this unbiased standard. Oh, we should teach a neutral. No. This is what I'm saying. The educational system is not focused on actually getting our kids, making them smart, productive, and knowledgeable citizens. The educational system is currently geared towards indoctrination, transmitting values to the children. And if it's a game about who gets to transmit their values to their kid, I'm going to go with the parent every day of the week. Especially if the education system that's backing all this is liberal. Because at the end of the day, as a parent, I deal with that all my life. Until I'm 6 feet in the ground, I have to deal with the mess that you created in my child. But you're trying to say you have as much right to influence my kid as me? Oh no, I don't agree with that. Because at the end of the day, the parents have final veto power. Period. Regardless if the state want to recognize it or not. And that's why I say that's why I did the video about homeschooling. Homeschooling is going to rise in popularity. And if people start making sacrifices, because parents will make sacrifices. I made sacrifices to homeschool their kids. Keep it up. Keep pushing people out. Keep pushing out criticism. Criticism is an opportunity to improve. I think that's how the public school people should view it. But, I digress. I don't want to ramble too much.
As loud as the other side without risk of, losing our jobs even.
But you two are kind of the ones that brought in the conflict of there is an indoctrination going on and only one side it has this opinion and this side is not allowed to talk and we have to be quiet. When really you guys are actually the loudest in regards to this issue thus far, right?
Right now, yes.
So,
yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the quiet. What I would say though is I do want to push away, if possible, and I'd love for you to hear this, right? Is that idea of someone sees me and they go, oh, you're one of those that teach that there's 72 different types of gender. Desmond Fambrini, he, him, gender fluid, bisexual. My students do not know this because it doesn't come up because I'm a learning specialist and it's my job to educate and teach a curriculum, right? Now, if I'm asked directly by a parent or if there's confusion, oh, why do you wear makeup? Same reason why girls do, because it's fun for me. It doesn't need to be this very controversial.
So this is where I have a problem with liberals because I have an example. I have a doctor, my kids have a pediatrician, and this guy's a liberal. I know he's a liberal. When I go into his office, it has a sign in the front whenever you come in and says that don't teach your kid to be racist. I don't know. they put messaging out there and you just say, oh, it's just a poster. Like you can ask me about it. We can have the conversation. But they like to protest in very passive and in your face ways, right? And that kind of stuff. And like I said, kids are very impressionable around that age. And I always feel uncomfortable when I go in that office, right? But it's the same thing that this guy is doing here. Wearing makeup, I'm a guy. The kid's gonna ask questions. The kid's gonna be exposed to that. The kid's gonna be like, "Oh, maybe I could do it too," right? And I don't know. This is why I said, like, I leave it up to the discretion of the parents. Hey, you want your kids to be exposed to that stuff? Or you're comfortable with your kid being more feminine? I'm traditional all the way. Hey, look, I'm gonna raise my son as a masculine boy. That's my approach, and it's my right to raise my kid that way. But you coming in with your makeup and stuff, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm not comfortable with you wearing makeup there. And then you say, I'm not changing it. I have a decision to make. But most of these teachers know that most people who put their kids in public school that's because that's usually their only option for schooling. So they know, and this is the school board. This is the reason why the school board don't take parents' critiques about them seriously, because they know you ain't gonna do nothing. Like, most of you guys don't have the means to take your kid out and put them into private school, right? This is why you get a double penalty for protesting them, because now you had school free. Now you have to take your kid out of public school, put them into private school. Now you got to pay for private school out of your own pocket, and you're still paying and your property taxes is still funding the public school. So you're getting hit twice. This is why I say school choice is the fairest system, because at least with your tax dollars, it follows your child. That's why the school board don't want you. That's why big proponents of the teacher unions, the Department of Education, they don't want school choice, because it gives the leverage, it moves the leverage away from them and put it in the hands of the parents. So the parents can walk away just like you could walk away from a bad business. If Starbucks is taking too long to make your coffee, you out of the door. You're like, hey, I'm good. I'm not going to patronize. I'm not going to fund this business anymore. And they know if enough customers do that, they'll suffer a hard penalty. They'll suffer a tangible material penalty for their mistakes. And the public schools, the government schools, they do not want to be exposed to that. This is why they're doing everything they can to go against school choice. But I digress.
Controversial. I'm going to mess with this child's upbringing. They're going to go home and they're going to turn into a gender fluid, and they're going to think there's 72 genders.
I think that's a question you say you should go ask your parents about how they feel about that.
Well, so, okay.
Teachers are supposed to teach reading, math, science, the things that are actually going to make them contributors to society. Answering a child's questions about whether or not men or women should be wearing makeup or not is, I don't think, within that realm.
Okay, so you said science, right? So we're talking about a physical science, we're talking about human anatomy and biology here. So a child says, I thought boys could not wear makeup. I have an X and Y chromosome and I'm wearing makeup. I could factually answer that without indoctrinating with any opinion.
But it's in no way scientific, your answer to that question.
How is that not scientific?
I would say maybe cultural, or it's a perception or an opinion, but it's in no way scientific.
Anyone else? I am a chatty person, so I'm going to take a pause, and I'm.
Yeah, because, and it's like someone, like, here's an example of what I think CJ was trying to explain, right? I thought black people were all poor, Daddy. How come people say black people are poor, but you don't seem to be poor, Daddy? Let's say my son asked me that. I'd be like, oh, well, I made a different decision than what most black people do. I decided to do this. Most black people decided to do that. And that's why I'm here and they're there. Oh, okay. Because I heard a lot of people say that the reason why black people are poor is because of racism. I said, no, that's not true, son. Look, the evidence is, I don't believe that. I don't believe racism is stopping most black people from being successful in this country. Right? I don't even think racism is a big problem in this country. I think it's a minor inconvenience at best. Right? But you could probably think, oh, hell no. Racism is the biggest setback for black people. That's the kind of framing that the answer CJ was trying to say. Hey, your answer is not really scientific. It's opinion based. Now, I could have a bunch of facts to back up my conclusions about, like, why I think racism is not a minor inconvenience in my life. And you could probably bring up some stats. But if I could challenge or discredit your stats, it's not really objective. And I think that's what CJ's trying to bring. It's like, you're trying to, that's what I'm saying. The whole point of it, him wearing makeup, is to signal to people that, hey, I am this way. If he didn't wear makeup, if he didn't intentionally try to dress up like a flamboyant gay guy, or he's bisexual anyway, but you know, whatever. people wouldn't even realize what his sexuality is. But these people, they identify their identity with their sexuality, right? I don't identify with my straightness. I'm just me. I'm just like, yo, like whatever. Like no one's gonna ask me about, oh, are you into girls or are you into guys? No one's gonna ask me that. But when he's doing all this, people are gonna ask questions like, oh, okay, I think he's gay. Oh no, you're bisexual, right? It's I'm telling you, it's just like a very subjective way of like presenting these ideas in front of children, who I believe are the most vulnerable people in our society. But I digress.
Let's see if anyone else has something to say.
So I just had one question for you, because not all homes are welcoming or open to conversation or safe. So how do we balance that?
I think that what we're saying is that there's certain conversations that are not to be had with a teacher. And I think that the argument that a lot of people on the right and conservatives are making is that we just don't feel as if actors of the state should be having conversations that are taxpayer-funding conversations with children about conversations that have not come up in their own households. And to that point, if you can't talk about God in the classroom, why can we talk about every gender under the sun, right? I think that's the conundrum that we find ourselves in. If we,
as a conservative, we see that the transgender stuff, the social justice stuff, we see it akin to a religion. And liberals for the longest time say, hey, we don't want to teach religion, we don't want to teach ideology in classroom, but they are doing that, right? They're creating an incentive structure where you're not allowed to talk about this ideology, but this ideology is permissible in open space because it's, oh no, you have to be exposed to different ideas. But then, okay, can I bring my Bible and pray in classroom? Oh no, you can't do that. But I thought it was an open space. Yeah, but not for that, because that insinuates hate. You make a lot of people feel uncomfortable because they use, like I said, they use the social justice stuff as a cudgel. Oh, that's not very inclusive, right? That's the new religion. That's the value system they're trying to push on your children, to the point where when they get to high school, they're having debates where they're trying to consider people's feelings instead of actually winning and having a coherent argument. It's craziness, but I digress.
We are banning those conversations. We banned those a long time ago. Then how can we have these conversations just because they belong to a different side of the political aisle?
So I think we actually talk about God in the classroom all the time, right?
Yeah.
Who's taught religion? Who's taught world religions? Who's taught like history in the way that, Puritans, and that's okay, because God is part of the fabric of history and whatever else.
We talk about it from a development perspective. This is how Christianity originated. This is how Islam originated. We don't talk about like, this is what this gender is, and this is if you feel this way, then there's gender affirmation therapy, all those things.
I think you actually bring up a really good parallel of like, I feel comfortable and I feel like it is okay to talk about identity issues the same way we talk about God. Not indoctrinating anyone, not telling this is what you have to be or you have to believe, but saying this is something that some people believe.
But in the sense of gender identity, I don't see that parallel. How is that making someone more literate, more successful?
What I hear you saying is that learning about different gender identities does not make somebody a more considerate, well-rounded person, but learning about different religions does make you a more considerate, well-rounded.
I'm saying that is a part of history. I don't understand where gender identity falls within what we should be teaching.
Religious history and God comes into play in terms of history, cool. But don't gay people and trans people too? It's not.
Gay people maybe. Trans people, I don't know, because this is a fairly modern idea. When did when did gender theory became a thing in our history? I think in the 60s, maybe in the 50s, maybe. This is a fairly recent concept. This is like very modern concept. So I don't think trans people have much history, right? I don't know. But now we're hyper focusing on that, right? They're like 0.0, like the real transgender people are like 0.1% of the population, but we're hyper focusing on it too. It seems like every other theme, it involves them in some way, right? But I digress. Like, this is what they want. This is what they push so hard in society because they just want recognition and approval. And to me, I was like, yo, like the amount of validation these people seek from outside people is concerning to me. Right, to the point where now they're using kids as their own personal validation tool, right? And I think that's where this thing's stemming from: approval and validation. And they're happy as long as they can get it. They'll find any way to justify what they're doing, make excuses for what they're doing, offer that validation. And now they're getting it from our kids. And I think it's some sick, twisted way. This opens the door for a lot of people with malicious intent, and uses this as a shield to disguise what they're really doing. plausible deniability, right? But hey, I digress.
Like, I'm the first transgender person to ever walk this earth. Like, there are trans people that were, and gay people who were part of major movements in this country, like from the civil rights movement to the feminist movement to, I mean, obviously Stonewall. Like, isn't that part of history too?
Let's just take a step back. So just show of hands. Who here thinks public school is the best option for kids? Okay. And who thinks private school is the best option for kids? Who thinks homeschool is the best option for kids? And then some of you guys didn't raise your hands at all.
It's so challenging to pick one right answer for that, because essentially what you're asking is, who do you trust the most with your children? Who do you trust to give them the cultural values that I have and then fill in the gaps where I don't necessarily know the answer, but I trust that they're experts and are going to give my children the attention that they need in order to develop so that they can be a better version of themselves.
Most teachers aren't experts, though. That's the problem I have. Like, private school, maybe, because maybe, depending on the private school. Public school, hell no. All they do is tell you what to memorize from a book, and then they test you on memorization of that concept in that book. Homeschooling, there's more flexibility, but also, like, is very individualized, right? And if it's about trust, I'd rather trust my wife with her kid, teaching her kid, than a stranger teaching my kid for 8 hours, right? You get me? Like, it's that's not even debatable. Who would you trust more with your kids? Yourself and the one you made the kid with, usually. But, I digress, because I really want to hone in on this point real quick.
If I had to choose one, it's public school. It is the best tool we have to give everybody a chance at a good education.
No, it's the worst option, obviously. Are you showing you with Baltimore? Right? More classroom disruptions with hold back people who actually are there to learn, right? Like the way that, like, the ratios too, teachers always complain that there's so many students compared to that one teacher that it drags down the quality of education. And honestly, public school could be a lot better if it had school choice, because there's stats that prove that when a private school opens up around the area of the public school, the quality of education rises up, because the public school realizes there's competition in the area. Competition brings up quality, period. That's almost a law. That's a law. Competition increases quality, because they know they can lose resources if they're not on their A game. Now, imagine if school choice is introduced into the environment, bro. The quality of education will rise up, and also it gives parents their right to control what kind of education their kids should have. If the kid performs well in public school, he can stay in public school as long as it's the best option for that child. But the minute that school stops being the best option for that child, the parents have the means to move the child and put them somewhere where they can be successful. Because the whole point of this public school is to sacrifice the good kids, so that way other kids can have the same level of access, but you're hindering the success and the potential of the intelligent, successful student. Like, that's why academically motivated parents tend to not put their kids in public school, because I'm trying to be nice here, but that's where most people who, like, regardless if they're a motivated parent or not, they put their kids in public school. It takes no effort to put your kid into public school, because that's the way this current system is set up, to make it convenient for you to just put your kid in public school. That's why they're so against school choice, because how those systems currently set up, it punishes you for taking your kid out of public school. Because, like I said, you get penalized twice. You're paying property tax, which is going to an institution that your kid is not even being benefited of, which I think violates taxation without representation. Also, you have to pay out of your own post-tax money for the education of your child. So actually, you're getting penalized twice for a parent who is unmotivated, treats public school like a daycare. Your tax money is funding their kid to be able to do that. And that's why public school tends to be the worst option, because it's also the environment. It's not just the teacher, not just the teaching major, but also the environment. Right? Poor kids tend to go there. Poor kids tend to not take school seriously. They tend to have less motivated parents when it comes to academic achievements, academic success. Parents are more passive in those environments. There's a lot of factors, and I think it's very behavior driven. And that's a lot on the parents. And that's what I'm saying. There's a bottleneck there. It's the parents. I omit that. It's not all just the education system itself. It's our culture. It's parents, how parents view their kids, how parents view education. They just think, oh, I can throw my kids in a public school and they'll come out Albert Einstein. Nope. They need support. They need help. But I digress. I don't think public school is the best option. Obviously, you can hear it in my voice. I'm a big critic of public school, but
no matter where you come from, how much money you have, public schools where not everybody thinks the same and people are coming from all walks of life is a good like microcosm of that global experience where you can learn critical thinking skills and learn how to be a good community member because not everybody looks like you or thinks like you.
If you think that way, like, and the day, I always like to make this argument that tolerance isn't submission. If someone says, I'm a trans boy and that person's a girl, I'm allowed to say, yeah, no, I think you're a girl. And that person shouldn't be offended. He's like, okay, that's what you think. That's a tolerant thing. But if you penalize me for expressing my view, is it really a tolerant? Oh, we're open to, you get exposed to people who don't think like you. I don't think like this person who thinks he's a girl, but he's really a boy. But I'm getting penalized. I'm suffering a punishment because I didn't go along with how he sees himself. It's a double standard here. So I don't know. It's just a lot of colorful language, but when it's time for the tires to meet the road, it don't roll.
Kali, you're shaking your head.
Oh, well, first of all, our schools are more segregated ever than our public schools, especially in blue states. New York and California have the most segregated schools. And on top of that, we are in a place where our public schools are not safe, especially the last 20 years. And I just don't see why sending our kids to these environments where...
Yeah, gun-free zones, like even with the Maine shooting, unfortunately, these lunatics with guns will target areas they know people are not armed. Gun-free zones. Public schools tend to be gun-free zones. So there's that safety element as well. And that's another reason I don't want to put my kids in public school, right? Because for the longest time, I've been a big proponent of, hey, we should have some armed security. Do take budgeting out, take it out of ineffective stuff like that $1.7 billion thing budget that they just got approved for Baltimore. They could have took at least that $38 million they're using for art teachers, cut half of it and give the other half for a security force to increase security in the public school system. They don't care. That's how you increase the safety. That's how you make people feel more more comfortable giving their kid to you. Say, okay, I know my kid is safe here. Public schools do that. I talk about it. I have a public school down the road where I live at that they have a security officer with a gun. I'm like, oh, okay. That's how we rolling out here in Florida. All right. I felt safe. I was like, oh, I could leave my kid here and not worry. At least know that the school is equipped, have a fighting chance to at least somewhat protect my son or deter possible threats to my kids. But homeschooling to me is a safer option, obviously, if you have the ability, right? But it's a big time investment. While private school is a big monetary investment. While public school, you don't, it's like, that's why I say the current system makes it so convenient to put your kid in public school. But if you go, but at the end of the day, if the government makes something convenient, it's because they want you to do it. That's the whole point of the system. And that's why I'm saying is how 76% of our kids are being schooled by the worst option available to us, educationally anyway. The worst educational environment for most students. And all you have to do is look at the test scores. Look how we compare education-wise to the rest of the world. I mean, I'm digressing out here, man.
Where it's unsafe. We also used to be, because I used to be on the left, we used to be against the institutionalization of our children. These kids are being institutionalized, having these places where there's 2,000, 3,000 kids. I'm okay with public school, but the problem with it is that it's become an environment where it's just almost like the school to prison pipeline. We used to talk about that in the 90s. We're not talking about that anymore. And I think that's something that parents need to wake up about and America needs to wake up about, the institutionalization of our children.
I think the system's not going to change until the parents actually either demand more from it or stop tolerating what has been given us so far and actually do things that actually force their hand to actually address the issues that's going on with their education system. I think that's my personal take anyway.
I talk about the school to prison pipeline all day, every day. And I hear what you're saying, that it's terrible that there are parents who are sending their kids to schools that are not safe. However, what about the parents that don't have a choice? Like, I'm thinking about like the most marginalized community when I said public schools here, because I agree with you, the public schools have a lot of work to do to become the safe places where our kids are not in institutions where they're ignored or not given the services they need. And also, for the people that don't have a choice and that is the only option their kids have, I just believe that's worth fighting for. That's why I said public
Absolutely.
schools.
I'm a big advocate for school choice.
Oh, here we go.
Why don't we just show of hands? Who believes in school choice?
Can you just specify like what do you mean
So
by
that's
that?
where parents can apply the money that they pay to taxes. They get vouchers, and they can put that into any school that they want. It's very popular in red states right now, and a lot of blue states are against it, especially teachers' unions are against it because it's taking money away from the public.
Not money, not just money, but power too. They can no longer, be on their high horses and be like, okay, parent, you're done complaining, right? It gives the parents a recourse to actually hold these people accountable, right? And they don't like that because now to be competitive, the public school have to shake things up because right now they're comfortable. Right now, public school is an educational monopoly right now. And we all know what happens when we have a monopoly. No innovation. They don't want to change. They don't want to adapt. And you get this current education system we have now. And all I'm saying is if you do school choice, it forces them to be like, okay, look, we gotta keep the best teachers, we gotta reward the best teachers with higher salaries, right? To increase the quality of our education, to keep up with the private schools and the charter schools and the homeschooling parents. Like we have to offer a service better than what's out there. And that forces them to compete. Right now, government schools, public schools, they're insulated from competition. The current system is way set up right now, where it takes 30, where to fire a teacher, it's like dragging teeth, right? If a teacher's doing bad, they have to be doing bad for months, and then they get put in a probation where they still get paid. And even then, they get transferred to another school instead of getting fired. It's very hard to fire teachers currently in our current system the way it's set up. And it's not conducive for teachers to perform at their best. That's what I'm saying. You have to change the incentives if you want to change the outcome in public school. And this is why I have a big problem with public school. I digress, though.
Public schools and creating more of a competitive market.
Right. That's why I wouldn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
So I understand.
See, but to me, it's like, it's laziness because as a private worker, like I work in the private sector, right? I work in corporate America. I can't be like, oh yeah, I get performance reviews all the time. Like we all have to get performance. Okay, what you did today, Kenny? Oh, okay, that's good. Okay. Hey, you can improve here a little bit, right? All of us work to death so that way we don't get a performance improvement plan. But you think these teachers get performance improvement plan? Hell no. And you wonder why our education system is falling behind compared to the rest of the world. Everyone wants to talk about the free healthcare, not the free healthcare, the free education that Finland gives to its college students. But do you know if you don't test well on their test, you can't go to college? College is not a right over there in Finland. You have to earn it. You have to be a top student. Okay, you got the test scores, you can get your free college. But no one points that out. Craziness to me. This is insane. This is insanity. Yeah, I probably wouldn't raise my hand because he heard or whatever she is competitive. She's like, oh no, I don't want to compete for my job. I just want to cruise along. It's comfortable over here. I could just do the bare minimum and I could be considered a good teacher. There's no incentive for good teachers to go above and beyond because they're going to say, I'm going above and beyond, but I'm getting paid as the same way as this slouch over here who just do the bare minimum. What's the point of trying? But I bet if they have performance-based pay or merit-based pay, the good teachers will get most of the, it would inevitably create a market for good teachers because the public school is going to want to hire them. The private school is going to want to hire them. Homeschooling parents will want them as tutors. This will raise the income of good teachers, but it will hurt. The trade-off is it'll hurt lower quality teachers. Teachers who are bad teachers, they're going to be getting paid the same amount while they see their other high-performing peers getting paid 80, more money. They're like, damn, I can't do that because I don't have the skills. It's the same thing here on YouTube, on the internet. People get paid. You see one person, he's getting paid $400K. Oh, this guy getting paid $100K. This guy's getting paid $1 million. Why am I getting paid $1 million? Because you're not as good. That's what the teachers are scared of. This is why the teacher unions are so desperately linked to the Democratic Party because the Democrats protect this monopoly. And as you scratch my back, you scratch yours. Democrats say, hey, teacher unions, put in a nice word for us for our young up and coming Americans. Okay, Democrats are the good guys. Lincoln was a Democrat. You see how I can interpret the bias here? There's too many conflict of interest to say that teachers are fighting for the best interest of the child. No, they're not. They're fighting for the best interest of themselves. And you just saw it right there. But I digress.
Sometimes with school choice, it gets a little bit tricky, right? My first class the first day I had 25 students. By day 2, I had 19 because 6 parents switched out of the class because they saw me and they were like, there's no freaking way, before I even got a word in.
It doesn't matter. Like, that's the parent's right. That's the parent's right. If I sit in your class, let's say I decide to do visit and I sit in and I don't like the way you teaching my kid, hey, I'm toting my kid out. Now you get to experience what gym trainers experience, right? Customer service people experience. Customer's not happy, customer leaves, customers don't pay. Oh well, toughen up. That's what I'm saying. And the funny part is they spend less time working compared to everyone else too. I know I'm speaking to somebody. Teachers get what? Maybe 2 months off? And it's not really 2 months off, but you don't have to deal with kids for 2 months. My job is 24/7 except for what? I have like 20 days paid time off. 20 days out of the year. And I only get that per quarter. I only get 1 week vacation per quarter. That's a lot of Americans right now. But still complaining. Nothing's ever enough. Self-interest. Like, no, like this is not good. This is not a good, like, yo, you're providing a service. Your focus should be the service. YouTube's trying to give you guys ads again. Like, I don't know why he's doing that. But hey, I digress. I paused it. Let's continue. I always hate doing this.
As a parent, I would want to know, like, do you not think that that is okay or they're right to withdraw when they see you? Because ultimately, you're probably an excellent educator.
I appreciate that.
I have no doubt about that. But I think we get into muddy waters when we start trying to take that choice away from the parent.
Do I think that it is okay for a parent to see me and go, not around my kid?
Exactly.
No, I don't think that's okay.
Well,
I feel like that's really crossing the line.
Well, that's not your right. Like this is what I'm talking about. Like, that's a privilege. That's not a right. Like, my right is I can freely associate who I want to associate with. I can freely associate what my kid wants. If I say, hey, I don't want my kid around white people, no one will bat an eye. But let a white person say he don't want his white kid around black people, a riot is gonna happen. Double standards. I don't like double standards. Freedom of association, because in the day, you can't force him to be associated with you. And anyway, who wants to be around somebody that don't want to be around you? I don't understand this logic. That guy should be happy the teachers took him out. Okay, you did me a favor. That's how I would have thought of it if I was in his shoes. You did me a favor. Oh good. That's 5 less headaches I have to deal with. No, why these people didn't like? No, focus on the people that's there with you, not people who left. And now you want to overreach people's rights to take their kid out of school. You see the mind frame I'm telling you, it's very self-centered here. I don't know. To me, this only validates my position about how teachers are. They only looking out for themselves, not what's in the best interest of the child. But I digress.
Line, because you are, for lack of better words, discriminating against me openly. That's like seeing a black teacher and being like, there's no way. It is the same. It is the same.
It's still the right of the parent to make that decision as to whether or not they want their child to learn from you.
Okay.
Like, it's still that parent's right. Like, you can disagree with their motivation.
Yeah, you could disagree, but I don't know why it's doing this. Yeah, you can.
Motivations or motive.
You can disagree, but end of the day, that's not in your control, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. The left worry about things they have no control over because they're control freaks. So what? The parent did you a favor. Like, and for that, I think it's discrimination. Look, not all discrimination is bad. Sorry, I'm being honest. I'm being honest. From a personal level, personal discrimination is permissible. If I'm a guy and I'm Christian, and I saw an atheist, I say, hey, I don't want to associate with an atheist. That's my right. Just like the atheist has, I don't want to be around these Christian and evangelicals. That's the atheist's right. From a personal level, if a white woman says she don't date black guys, that's her right to discriminate. We allow discrimination on a personal level. And that falls in that case. The kid thing, it falls in that case. Hey, I don't want my kid to be taught by this dude because I don't want my kid to be confused about gender norms. Because then this is what I'm saying. Oh, we want to expose kids to other ideas. That's it. No, I'm not ready for that conversation. I'm making my kid out of the classroom, and you're complaining about that. That's to me. That's like, there's no point. But this is the grandstanding they're trying to do. But I digress.
Their ideas,
Would you
but
say
it
that
is still their child.
This started around school choice. Even if you want to decide on a different learning environment for your kid, the people that do not have the option to send their child to a different place, the bar should not be so low. And that's my concern with school choice, is that sometimes people think that if everyone flees to the suburbs, who is teaching in these schools where everyone has decided they don't want their tax dollars going to? And that's one of the big concerns. With funding of education being the way that it's set up, it essentially makes it so that the people that are stuck with these as their options don't end up with as good a school, and everyone deserves to have their kid go to a good school.
Well, if there's school choice, they won't be stuck with those options. They can have other options. That's the whole point of that. Also, it is the school district's job to appropriately use those budgets. Most of the budget in the schools aren't going to the teachers. We got cafeteria workers, janitors, all of these people that are getting paid.
It used to be 9 out of 10 people that were employees of schools and districts were teachers. Now it's 50-50.
Yes.
So there is some.
Yeah, administrations soak up a lot of the money that whenever they go out here fundraising, hey, we need more money for schools. They usually hire more administrators for it, right? Administrators are what really controls the curriculum, what teachers can or can't do. And it doesn't add to the product, which is the education. And this is the point I'm making, that a lot of the money gets misused. And for what? For nothing. Just for more people, more bureaucrats, more gatekeepers to get prominent positions and get paid well. That's the reality of the education system today. But I digress.
Some mismanagement of funds in this country. We actually fund our kids really well.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Too many administrators.
Just to go back a little bit to like when you guys are raising your hands about the different choices, you raised your hand for homeschooling. Can you talk us through like why do you think homeschooling is the best option?
Well, it's cheaper and it's more cost effective comparatively. And it relies a lot on the parent. I'll give it that, right? So like if a parent like me homeschool my kids going to be pretty competitive. At least that's how I hope. Right, my child will be pretty competitive compared to other options, right? And it's only $600 a month. Oh my God! Like imagine that we can educate kids at a higher quality for only $600 a month. That's the epitome of capitalism, right? More benefit for lower cost, right? So I'm gonna end the video on this point right here about the homeschooling, and then I'll wrap it up with my final thoughts, and I'll catch you guys next week. So let's finish up the video.
If we look at the history of this country, a lot of people were homeschooled. A lot of our founders were homeschooled. Like they only went to school till 3rd grade, a lot of them. And I think what has happened is parents have decided that the government is going to do a better job at raising their children than themselves. We have also come to a place where school is taking up the majority of our day. And we have this mistrust of parents that they can't educate their own children. And I think that that's wrong. I think that a lot of parents, and if you look at homeschool data, like my friend Phil right here, he's got 7 kids and he's homeschooling them all. And actually homeschool kids are turning out really well.
I think you bring up a lot of very valid points, but I have to say, and I just want your opinion on this, I would never homeschool my own kids. And I want my kids to be smarter than me, than I ever was. How am I going to have a child that is smarter and does better than I do if I'm their only teacher?
So here's this is a dumb argument in my view, but hey, I digress. As a homeschooling parent, as myself, right? I read a lot of books. Like I believe in, I stop learning when I die. That's my philosophy. So I'm never really gonna have a stop of knowledge, right? And a lot of parents, a lot of teachers, especially, like a lot of people who graduate college, there's this idea that you have arrived, that you're done learning, that you learned everything you needed to learn in college. I don't have that concept because I'm a college dropout. Everything I learned through books, and I'm always buying new books, and I'm always reading with my kid. Learning is a continuous thing. And that's the habit and values that I'm transmitting to my son. That's one reason why I want to homeschool. Because I don't want public school specifically, and I think the educational system in the US creates this idea that learning is a chore. The current education system in the US destroys the children's natural curiosity to learn new things, right? Because how the education system approaches learning stuff is, hey, memorization, regurgitation. They make learning something new as work. Instead of fun, engaging, they make it boring. And the kid starts associating learning with boring. That's one of the reasons why I homeschool, because I don't want my kids to think learning is boring, because I don't think learning is boring. I love learning about new stuff. I love learning to wrestle with ideas and challenging it and reflecting on it and trying to see if it's true in reality and testing the ideas, testing the assumptions, testing the theories. I love that stuff. I love to personally engage with the ideas. And this is one of the reasons I started this channel as well, because I love to debate. I love to talk. Right? Obviously, I've been talking for an hour, 44 minutes. I'm still going. Right? And this is the kind of passion and values that I want to transmit into my kids. And I think I can do a better job of doing that than some teacher who has no personal ties with my kid. At least from from my sense, like I care about my kid more than some stranger will. So I'm more engaged. I'm more invested in him preserving that curiosity. And I think that's a big reason why people homeschool, right? And the studies, the results show homeschooling kids, they perform a lot better on a lot of these generalized testing that a lot of these schools use for college admissions to verify if the kids are receiving the information. And that's regardless of the homeschooling parents' education. So to make this point like, oh, I want my kids smarter than me. Look, I'm being serious. I don't think my kids will ever be smarter than me. I'm just being a competitive man. That's how I am. I've always been competitive. I've always been a competitive guy. My kids won't have to prove me wrong. That's how competitive I am. But that will drive them to be better than me, right? So I think that's the kind of culture that I want in my household, and I think that's a big reason why I personally homeschool. But hey, she was supposed to answer a question, but here I am interjecting because I feel like she was taking shots at me. I'm messing around. Let's get back into the video.
You grow alongside your child.
Okay.
I think as a teacher, I feel like I've learned the most in my life as a teacher. Like
True.
more so than in college. And, so parents becoming teachers is actually good for them as well.
Okay.
And then even in the public schools, a lot of teachers are relying on the lesson plans. But
Yep.
speaking from experience,
Lesson plans in the curriculum. So it's less engaging, honestly, because it's just mundane, right? The teacher will be like, oh, this is the third time I did this class. I seen it in college. Guy comes in, he knows the textbook at this point because he's been teaching the same subject for 10 years, the same way, and he has no enthusiasm. No, it's less engaging, right? Homeschooling, I got to be creative, bro. I'm trying to teach my kid about philosophy, not giving up, understanding that there's things in his control, not in his control, and I had to find fun ways to engage his attention so he absorbs the concepts that I'm trying to feed to him, right? And I think that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the public school people, they like to say that, oh, the reason why we get such lower averages on SAT scores and on these educational metrics is because the parents are not engaged with their children. Well, the current system has not created an incentive for parents to be engaged with their kids. A lot of parents in America treat the educational system as free daycare. That's the reality. Hey, look, I'm a homeschooling parent. I can say this. That's the reality. A lot of people treat public school as free daycare. That's the reality. And this is why you don't get engaged parents. This is why you don't get parents who are invested or paying attention, because that's how they see the public school. Okay, you're just free daycare. Taxpayer funded daycare. That's how people see public school. A lot of parents. I'm not gonna say all, but a lot of parents do. Right? And this is why this is usually those kids that perform, their parents are less engaged, are less aware of their academic standing. A kid could be borderline about to get kicked out of the school and the parents just started finding out, right? This is how you get parents that's not aware of what's going on with their kid academically anyway. I'm just saying, like, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome, and you see the outcome. Oh, well, we get lower averages. The stats show that more engaged parents get their students tend to perform better in school. It's not our fault. It's the parents' fault. But look at the system. Look at the Department of Education. Look how the government essentially created an environment where public schools become a monopoly, and you're surprised that you're getting negative results, but you don't want to take any accountability. Public schools, you want to just shift all of the blame on the parents. How convenient. I digress.
I got to give the credit where it's due. My wife does the homeschooling, and I've watched that process of her learning alongside, to make sure when they ask these questions, I'm getting knowledge on the material as well, so I can help you get through it.
The best way to learn something is to teach it.
Then replaces that value, that bonding time that she gets to have with the kids.
I taught high school for 6 years, and I quit and I'm a stay-at-home mom with my own kids. So we're a one-income family. We're lucky enough to be able to live off of my husband's salary. Would you say that most homeschool families have one parent working?
I do think the statistics show that that is the case.
It's like the only way to do it well.
Yeah, and usually those like, and I'm a statistic, guys. I'm sorry. No, obviously the black man's a statistic. All right, I'm a statistic. Like I'm a higher than average income earner, so I could. That's the problem I have. That's why I want school choice, right? I wanted that even if parents don't have necessarily the ability to be on a single income, that at least they have the means to put their kid in a private school, charter school even, all right? And maybe different forms of schooling will come up. This is why I'm a big proponent of privatizing the education system, because it allows different ideas to come in and give it a place to test its abilities, its results, right? Because how you know a theory is bad if you can't test it in reality. And this is why I'm a big proponent of privatization of the educational system, right? One school, hey, we only teach kids 4 hours a day, but we teach them this way. And another school say we teach kids 6 hours. And then you see, oh my God, look at the results. These kids that only study for 4 hours, then go home, they have better outcomes than kids that spend 8 hours in traditional school. We won't be able to have those kind of conversations if we don't allow an arena where we can test these theories and these ideas and try out different ways of doing things, right? Because the last industry that needs disruption, right? We see banking getting disrupted, mainstream media getting disrupted, right? Education is long overdue for a disruptor. And I think the only way that can happen if we privatize education. But let's finish off this little last point and then I'll wrap up the video.
Pretty much. And, you know, another misconception, though, is that they think it's a matter of income and homeschool families have to be rich and et cetera.
Not rich, but you have to be able to budget in a way where you can realistically live off of one income. That's it. It's budgeting. It's a lot of like checking your spending instead of, because it's easier to reduce your spending than to increase your income. That's my argument. But
I think the average homeschool family makes like $65K. So the reality is they're scaling back and making sacrifices for this lifestyle because
which is what me and my wife did. But you know, I'm enough humble bragging.
Value what is coming out of it.
So let's just say that for the people that homeschool isn't an option, what is for so many people it's not. I do not think that school choice is the way to go about that.
Why?
Which I know is a lot of people's answer to that.
Why?
Can we just get Sean in here? What are your thoughts on this?
School choice gives people an exit ramp. You get to send your kid to a school that best fits what you think is best for their development.
Ding, ding,
At the
ding.
end of the day, it's kitchen table conversations about we've worked hard to raise a family. We want to spend our money in a way that best fits our child, best fits our family.
Exactly. No, like the time of one size fit all solutions is dead. Everything has to be specific. Everything has to be specific to the individuals. Like social media, we see it with social media. Even though I think it's a bad thing, but you see it with social media. Everything is personalized. Okay, the algorithm is personalized to your watch habits, what you like, what you dislike. The algorithm is specified for you. Education has to take the same approach, and I believe that's the most effective route and the best route that's going to give us that outcome of specification is privatization. You have to privatize it. If you keep making it public, it keeps falling under this assumption that one size fit all, and that breeds the education to inefficiencies, right? And this is why we got such brittle and bad outcomes with our current education system. Honestly, school choice is a way of driving us towards that outcome, but you know, people don't want it because it challenges current power structures that want to keep public school the educational monopoly that it is today. I digress.
You don't have school choice, you do make those trade-offs. There are real consequences there.
The school is considered one of those shared spaces, one of those last kind of shared spaces where you might bump into someone who maybe comes from a different background than you, has a different ideology than you. What do you lose if you homeschool and then you're not putting yourself in these kind of situations?
What you lose is negative influences. One of the biggest
oh my God. Hey, let me not talk.
Things I think when it comes to homeschool is keeping my kids away from your bad kids. We've went and taken our children to pride parades. And you know what I mean? We've been there, we've been loving, and we showed support to the people there. But at the same time, we explain our views on the matter that we believe marriage is between a man and a woman. And from experience, and talking to people, I understand that a lot of people who choose that lifestyle, it is based on trauma. A lot of were molested or sexually assaulted as children. So I don't think it's okay for me to teach to my children that this is something normal we ought to accept when it doesn't progress society. We would not be able to procreate if everybody were to choose that lifestyle.
Which is a functional argument he's making, right? And that's his right. This is real tolerance. Like, he will be able to say his piece, and this person will be able to say his piece without getting into his feelings. Because at the end of the day, this is a big thing in our culture that we have to come to a realization. You do not have power over outside events, aka you don't have any power outside of this mind, this thing in your head. Everything else is outside of your control. Only this is in your control. So how you respond to things is in your control, but not what happens to you. If someone disagree with you, that's what just happens to you. How are you going to respond to it? Getting your feelings? Like this guy right here. Look at him. Look at his face.
I think it's okay for me.
He's like, what? Did he just say that? That's how you chose to respond. Instead of you had a productive argument, say, I'm gonna respond with tact. But this is true tolerance. Giving the person to speak, hey, look, that's his view, that's his worldview. Just like you see nothing wrong with men wearing lipstick, I can have something wrong with men wearing lipstick. That's tolerance. But to them, tolerance is submission. No, you have to fold to my frame. We shouldn't have no equivalency here. You shouldn't be able to say your piece. Your piece is hate speech. Your speech is hate speech. No, that's a biased view. That's a very subjective view. That's not very tolerant. But I digress.
Me as a parent to say, hey, this exists, that exists, but this is our view on it, and this is how we want to present it to them.
Do you think it's somewhat problematic that you're going like, well, this is our viewpoint, that marriage is between a man and a woman because we can't move society forward with gay couples? Like, we have factually proven that incorrect. I can actually tell you that gay parents on average make exceptional parents and do exceptional things with kids because they adopt, and they only adopt kids when they are financially capable.
Well, that's contested. That's a contested study that he just brought up, because there's studies showing that no matter the financial standings of adopted parents, that if they're not like genetically related to the kid still has higher rates of crime, high rates of mental disorders like suicidal ideation, depression, right? They still are comparably worse than kids even in raised by single mothers, right? They have similar outcomes. Getting into crime, it's craziness. No matter, and the income, like what he said, like people who tend to adopt tend to be in a better financial standing than most genetically, like most parents, most birth parents, right? But there's some correlation. There's some need for a child to be raised by his genetic parents. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just what some data shows, that kids raised by adopted parents that have no genetic ties to them they have negative outcomes in life. So even the example here, I could say that's cherry pick data, or I don't even know where he's referencing this data from, but that's contestable. But I digress. We got 3 minutes left, so I'm gonna wrap it up with final dialogue.
Which actually makes kids of gay parents actually more successful and academically competent. So gay parents actually are very good at moving society forward, and we have the statistics to prove
Could that be a long-term solution, though, if a large population chose to choose that lifestyle? There would be no children to adopt.
No one is choosing this lifestyle.
That's an opinion.
Okay,
it's not an opinion. It's just
okay. Sorry.
It is an opinion, because at the end of the day, you can't prove that homosexuality is genetically tied, right? Now, but we have accepted that people are just naturally inclined to be homosexual. We have accepted that in society. But then also, you're the same people that said that your gender identity is a choice. So you get where the confusion is happening now. And these are the people that want to teach your kids. They want to teach your kids to be as confused as they are. On one hand, you can't choose to be gay, but you can choose your gender identity. Make it make sense. And this confusion, you want to teach it to our kids. And then you wonder why a lot of our kids in Gen Z can't make it in life, can't think their way out of a paper bag, can't name the year that America was founded on, the country they've been born in. Immigrants know more about this country than American-born students. But here you are, wanting, public school's the best. Yeah, right. Look at you guys. I digress.
Did you choose to be straight, sir?
I've been teaching for 15 years.
So
and
have I.
will say that there is some kids now that are going for that community that are doing it not out of a genuine, and there's pockets of them too. Like you'll notice like friend groups of girls that will all of a sudden decide that they're now trans.
The idea of LGBTQ being trending and the idea of teaching kids that being gay is a choice, those are two very
So
different
I answered that. Yes, I chose to be straight. Absolutely.
So
When?
you could,
Can you tell us about it?
Okay, so this conversation is not interesting to me whatsoever. So I want to touch upon critical race theory real quick before I end the stream. I know I said I was going to wrap it up, but I got really into it. So yeah, let's get into critical race theory because I want to make a point about it, and then I'll wrap up the stream. I promise.
That you are giving a high schooler's curriculum to a 3-year-old, but I'm already talking about consent and using proper anatomical language with my children, and that's where it begins and it ends in adulthood.
I think as long as it happens in a way such that, to the point you were making, that like kids are being protected, that's what I would say we prioritize.
I would say go back to the way it was when I was in elementary school. They separated the boys and the girls, and
they're talking about sex education, but why is it marked as critical race theory?
Of education, because it's not actually something that's even on like the docket for consideration.
That was a perfect description. I could not have done a better description if I tried.
It is in our schools. I saw the lessons that contain critical race theory in California.
It said the words critical race.
It said the words
Which
critical.
See, this is I don't care about word games. Well, going back to the social contagion aspect of the LGBTQ whatever community, right? They say Gen Z or no, it's Gen Z. The gayest generation in history, and we can make a correlation argument and say, hey, there's something to it, like the trendiness of being non-straight, right? And we're saying that education is playing a role into that, and it only validates my assumption about how I believe that education is really merely about transmitting values, transmitting ideology, getting people to think and have a certain worldview, right? And critical race theory is also part of that. To me, critical race theory is garbage, is trash. Get that away from my kids. I don't need you to be teaching my kid that based on his skin color, he has a fixed outcome. Oh, you're going to be poor because you're black. You're half black. Right? While his father's literally this is I'm giving you guys like how I personally think about myself. I'm going to be a walking narrative breaker for my kids. When they say, "Oh, black people can't do this," I want my kid to look at me and be like, my dad did that. My dad's not that. My dad don't act like that. My dad don't like fried chicken. Like, it's craziness. That's the example I want to put for my kid. Right? But I digress. Let's hear what they have to say about critical race theory, and then I'll wrap up the stream.
And yes. She's not wrong. She's not wrong because some states have implemented CRT into their curriculum. It means different things for different districts. So this is about to be a very complicated conversation.
It's complicated because y'all make it complicated because you're really trying to hide the purpose of it. That's my thing. If someone can't explain it simply, they don't understand it. And this is what's going on. They're not trying to let people understand it. This is why they want to teach it away from parents. Because they don't want to explain themselves to the parents. They just want to be able to have direct access to your kid and tell them, hey, learning how to save your money is white culture. It's a white behavior. Thinking in terms of cause and effect is part of white culture. You're a black man. You're not supposed to be thinking about cause and effect. You're not supposed to be curious about cause and effect. That's a white behavior. Showing up on time is a white behavior. Right? They're trying to racialize behavior so that way they can make the argument that the reason why they're not successful in life is because of racism. Because if you think of being responsible with your money, showing up on time, being disciplined and focused is a white behavior, then you can blame your race and say because of racism. It's because society demands behaviors that's only exclusively for white people, which is racist. You see the complex language they're trying to fit into it? They're really trying to mask the reality of the situation. Right? And they know that ish won't fly if you're talking to a grown adult, a parent with some life experience. But to a kid can't tell the difference between if that's true or false. And that's what they want to do. They want to implant this thing subconsciously into your kid. And this is what parents have to fight against. But I digress.
So in my district, and this is in California, they're requiring a class called ethnic studies in order to graduate. And in the class, they were taught about critical race theory. They were taught the definition. They were taught to analyze school policy through critical race theory, and they were taught how critical race theory is beneficial to analyze the U.S. It's basically like this idea that every institution in America, every institution, that interaction that you have has some sort of element of race, and usually there's a hierarchy of oppressed versus oppressor. And there are kids in America in K through 12 that are being taught that, and I'm so tired of people saying that's not happening when it is. And then when
denial.
I expose it, I'm being called racial slurs and names for exposing it. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like, so I think we need to stop saying it's not being taught in America and change it to should it be taught in America? Because it is. It is. There are teachers that are teaching this.
So exactly. So I want to end the video there. All right, you guys can watch the rest on your own time. I'm gonna leave the link in the description after I end the stream. But my final thoughts is that honestly, we got a choice in America, right? And we have to ask for the incentive structure to be changed because, end of the day, they're trying to essentially put frameworks and how to view the world based on race. And this is a thing: critical race theory, sex education, all this stuff is they're essentially the teachers are almost trying to replace the parents in a way. Hey, we have the right to instill values in your kid, when for the longest time it's been understood that only parents can instill values in their children because the parents will be the one responsible for taking care of those kids, right? But it also goes back to the fact that teachers are trying to use inclusive language. Oh, there's no such thing. No, let's remove parent from our lexicon. Mother, father, dad, mom, and we're all caregivers here, trying to put themselves at the same level as the parent. So in the child's eyes, they have the same authority as the parent. Oh, my teacher said this. I don't care what your teacher said. This is what I say. And what I say is go, because when you're getting to the hospital, your teacher ain't going to be there to pay the medical bills. I am. Because at the end of the day, I'm the parent. If I'm responsible for my kid, I have authority over my kid. That kid has my DNA. That kid, you don't share that kid's DNA. So why are you trying to have claim over, like, you trying to have say over what the kid gets to be influenced by, what opinions he gets to be exposed to or not exposed to? All right? You saw the lady, you saw the guy, the bisexual guy. He got mad when the guy was saying, "Yeah, look, we're gonna bring our kids to a gay pride parade. We're gonna say, hey, look, this is what they believe, and this is what we believe." And you saw how offended he got. But I say, hey, that's not your right. And this is where I'm saying, like, the left conflates privileges with rights. And they think that they have a right to influence your child when that's a privilege. Because at the end of the day, you're only allowed to influence that kid as far as the parent will allow. Because at the end of the day, if the parent says, "No, I don't want my kid associated," he saw what happened. The kids were out of his classroom the next day. And that's the reality. And I think a lot of teachers need to come to terms with that. And our government needs to structure itself around the parents. Because we tried this educational monopoly and it's not working. There needs to be some reform. There needs to be some change. But I think we need to have more debates about education system. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. I know it's been a long one, a long rant. I was supposed to be done 30 minutes ago, but you know me. I'm always talking. But hey, don't forget to like the stream on your way out. Don't forget. I hope you guys take care. I hope you guys stay safe. I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. Peace.